The quarters assigned to Taiho and Rika were located on Deck 7 of the Unity Station, a massive space station built specifically for the Bond program. The rooms were designed to be neutral, comfortable for multiple species. When Taiho arrived, he found them empty and quiet. Rika had not arrived yet. He looked around at what would be his home for the next year. There was a common living area, 2 separate sleeping rooms, a food preparation area, and a hygiene facility that could adjust to different species' needs. Everything was clean and new. It felt cold and temporary. Taiho unpacked his few belongings in one of the sleeping rooms. His tools, some spare clothes, a few photographs from Earth. He had just finished setting up his small workshop area in the corner when he heard the main door open with a violent sound. Rika entered carrying several large containers that she dropped on the floor with loud crashes. She looked at the space with clear disapproval. Too small, too soft. No training area. She walked to one sleeping room, looked inside, then went to the other where Taiho had put his things. This one is bigger. I take this one. Wait, I already... Taiho started to say. You are smaller. You need less space. She began removing his things from the room, not roughly, but not gently either, just efficiently. She carried his belongings to the other sleeping room and set them down. This is better arrangement. Taiho felt his jaw tighten but said nothing. He told himself to pick his battles. It was just a room. But it was also the first of what would be many, many similar situations. The problem started almost immediately. On the first morning, Taiho woke at auto 600 hours, which was normal station time. He found Rika in the common area, already covered in sweat, moving through combat exercises that involved a lot of jumping, spinning, and hitting the air with tremendous force. She had moved all the furniture to the walls to create space. Could you maybe do that a little quieter? Taiho asked, trying to be polite. This is quiet, Rika said, not stopping her movements. At home, I train with weapons. Here I am being very quiet. The floor shook each time she landed from a jump. Taiho could hear their neighbors below them hitting the ceiling with something, clearly annoyed by the noise. He tried to explain this to Rika. She looked confused. If they are bothered, they can come up and challenge me. That is how we settle such things. That's not how humans settle things, Taiho said. Then humans are strange, she replied and continued her exercises. The food situation was even worse. The station provided meals for all species, but Rika refused to eat the prepared Vexstar food they offered. This is cold, dead. No honor in eating dead meat that you did not hunt. She disappeared for several hours and came back carrying something that looked like a large purple lizard with too many legs. It was very much alive and very much unhappy. You cannot bring live animals into our quarters, Taiho said, backing away from the creature. I must eat, Rika said simply. She took the creature into her sleeping room. Taiho heard sounds he tried very hard not to think about. He lost his appetite for 3 days. Every day brought new conflicts. Rika had no concept of personal property. If she needed something, she took it, whether it belonged to her or not. She borrowed Taiho's tools without asking and returned them damaged or not at all. When he complained, she looked genuinely confused. You were not using them. I needed them. What is the problem? The problem is they're mine, Taiho tried to explain. You need to ask first. Why? We are bonded. What is yours is mine. What is mine is yours. This is how it works, and that's not how it works for humans. Then humans are very complicated for no good reason. The language barrier made everything harder. Rika spoke the common Confederation language, but not well. She understood maybe 70% of what Taiho said, and he understood even less of her. She used words in ways that seemed almost right, but completely changed the meaning. When Taiho suggested they compromise on the furniture arrangement, Rika spent an hour trying to figure out what strategic advantage she would gain from this compromise attack formation. Other couples in the program seemed to be doing fine. Taiho saw them in the station common areas, talking and laughing, learning about each other's cultures. Minho and his Andorian partner walked past Taiho and Rika's quarters one day, holding hands. Minho waved. Taiho waved back and tried not to look as miserable as he felt. The worst part was how other aliens looked at them. Some looked at Rika with fear. Some looked at Taiho with pity. Everyone seemed to think their pairing was a disaster waiting to happen. After 2 weeks, the station authorities called them both to a meeting. The official in charge was a Centaurian named Administrator Velos, a calm species known for their patience and diplomatic skills. Even he looked tired when Taiho and Rika entered his office. "We have received 17 noise complaints about your quarters," he said, looking at a data display. 12 reports of unauthorized wildlife, 6 incidents of property damage in common areas, and yesterday someone reported that Rika challenged 3 other residents to physical combat in the dining hall. "They insulted the quality of the food," Rika said, as if this explained everything. "I was defending the honor of proper meals." "You cannot challenge people to combat every time you disagree with them," Velos said with the patience of someone who had given this speech before. "Why not? It is efficient. We fight, someone wins, dispute is settled. Much faster than talking in circles like you do." Taiho rubbed his face with his hands. This was going nowhere. Velos looked at him with something like sympathy. "Taiho, are you managing okay? We have counselors available if you need to talk to someone." "I'm fine," Taiho lied. He was not fine. He was exhausted, frustrated, and starting to wonder if he could survive a full year of this. But he was also stubborn. He did not want to be the human who gave up first. "The bond program is important for Earth's standing in the Confederation," Velos continued carefully. "But it is also voluntary in spirit. If either of you wishes to request a reassignment, we can discuss options." Rika straightened in her chair. "My people do not quit. I agreed to this bond. I will honor it." She said it like a warrior reciting an oath, her voice hard and proud. Taiho surprised himself by saying, "I'm not quitting either." Velos looked between them and sighed. "Then you both need to try harder to understand each other. Meet in the middle somehow." He dismissed them with a warning that one more major incident would result in expulsion from the program. They walked back to their quarters in silence. When they got inside, Rika went to her room without a word. Taiho stood in the common area, looking at the moved furniture, the scratches on the walls from her training, the various items of her equipment scattered everywhere. He should have been angry. Part of him was angry. But another part of him was starting to understand something. Rika was not trying to make his life difficult. She was just being herself, living the only way she knew how. To her, this was normal. This was life. She probably found his habits just as strange and annoying. That night, the station alarm suddenly went off. Red emergency lights started flashing. An automated voice announced a critical failure in the environmental systems. Oxygen production was failing. They had maybe 8 hours before air quality became dangerous. Taiho immediately grabbed his tools and ran toward the door. Other residents were panicking in the corridors, some crying, some trying to call for help on their communication devices. Station security was trying to maintain order, but clearly had no idea how to fix the technical problem. Taiho pushed through the crowds toward the Environmental Control Center. He had studied the station systems when he first arrived because that was what he did. He understood how things worked. He needed to get to the main processors and manually reroute power to the backup systems. The control center was a mess. Smoke filled the room. Several station technicians were standing around looking at displays and arguing about what to do. Taiho did not wait for permission. He went straight to the main control panel and started working. "Who are you?" one of the technicians demanded. "Someone who can fix this," Taiho said, not looking up from his work. His hands moved fast, disconnecting burned circuits, rerouting connections, bypassing damaged sections. The panel was hot enough to burn his skin, but he ignored the pain. Hours passed. Taiho worked without stopping, barely aware of the people around him. His back hurt from bending over the controls. His hands were bleeding from sharp metal edges and electrical burns. Sweat dripped into his eyes, but he just wiped it away and kept working. At some point, he became aware that someone was standing behind him. He glanced back and saw Rika. She was not speaking, not offering to help, just watching him work. Her golden eyes tracked his every movement. 16 hours after the crisis began, Taiho finally restored the environmental systems. The alarm stopped. The red lights changed back to normal.
Air began flowing properly again.
The people in the control center actually cheered. Taiho stood up slowly, his whole body shaking from exhaustion. He looked at his hands. They were covered in burns and cuts, black with soot and grease. He felt dizzy and realized he had not eaten or drunk anything in 16 hours. Rika caught him as he started to fall. Her strong arms held him up easily. She looked at his damaged hands, then at his face. Something in her expression had changed. The disappointment was gone. In its place was So Taiho spent 2 days recovering from the environmental crisis. His hands were bandaged and healing slowly. The station medical staff had treated his burns and cuts but told him to rest. For once, Rika did not make noise during her morning training. She moved quietly, or as quietly as a 7-foot warrior could move. On the 3rd day, Taiho woke to find Rika sitting in the common area, speaking to someone on a hologram communicator. The image showed another Vextar female, slightly older than Rika with similar features but more scars. They were speaking in their own language, which sounded like a mix of growls and sharp consonants. Taiho tried to walk quietly back to his room, not wanting to interrupt, but Rika saw him and gestured for him to wait. She said something to the other female, who looked at Taiho with obvious curiosity. After a few more words, Rika ended the call. "That was Kira, my bond sister," Rika said. She seemed less hostile than usual, almost tired. "She wanted to know if I had killed you yet." "What did you tell her?" Taiho asked, half joking. "I told her you are harder to kill than you look." Rika stood and walked to the food preparation area. She had learned how to use the basic functions and actually made Taiho something to eat. It was simple but edible. This was new. "Sit, eat, we need to talk." Taiho sat cautious. Talking with Rika was usually more like being interrogated or receiving orders. But today she seemed different. Less angry. More thoughtful. "Kira says I am being stupid," Rika began, staring at her own food. "She says I am behaving like a young warrior who has not yet learned wisdom. She says I am making my exile harder than it needs to be." "Exile?" Taiho asked. "I thought you volunteered for this program." Rika made that growling laugh sound, but this time it sounded bitter. "Volunteer, yes, that is the word they used. But it was volunteer or face consequences. My clan leaders said I was too aggressive, even by Vextar standards. Too many fights. Too much anger. They said I needed to learn control, to learn how other species live. So they sent me here to this program to bond with someone who would teach me patience." She looked at Taiho. "And they gave me you, a human, the newest species in the Confederation, the species everyone thinks is weak." Taiho felt something click into place in his mind. Rika was not just disappointed in him. She felt rejected by her own people. To her, being matched with a human was an insult, proof that her clan thought she was a failure. "I'm not weak," Taiho said quietly. "I know that now," Rika admitted. "What you did in the control center, working for 16 hours without stopping, with your hands burning, refusing to quit, that was strength. Different from my strength, but still real." She paused, struggling with words. "I did not understand before. I thought if you cannot fight with fists and weapons, you are weak. But you fight with your mind, with your knowledge. It is strange to me, but I cannot say it is not fighting." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Taiho made a decision. He had tried ignoring the problems. He had tried just surviving. Maybe it was time to try something different. "I want to make a deal with you," he said. "I'll teach you about human customs and how we do things. You teach me about Vextar culture and how you do things. We both try to understand each other instead of just being angry all the time." Rika considered this. "What do I gain from this deal? Maybe you go home after this year and show your clan that you did learn control and patience. Maybe you prove them wrong about you." Taiho leaned forward. "And maybe I learn how to survive living with the toughest warrior in the Confederation without going crazy." A small smile appeared on Rika's face. It was the first time Taiho had seen her smile. It was a little scary, showing a lot of teeth, but it was genuine. "You are clever, mechanic." "Using my pride against me? Very well. I agree to this deal, but I teach you combat first. You need to learn how to defend yourself. You are too easy to kill." "I don't want to learn combat," Taiho protested. "I did not want to learn patience. We both do things we do not want. That is what a bond means." Taiho realized he had accidentally won and lost the argument at the same time. But maybe that was what compromise actually meant. The next morning, Rika woke him at 0500 hours. "Get up, training begins now." Taiho groaned but got up. Rika had cleared the common area again and was waiting in light training clothes instead of her usual armor. She looked even more muscular without the armor, which Taiho had not thought was possible. "First lesson," Rika said, "stance. How you stand determines everything in combat." She demonstrated a wide, low stance that looked powerful and balanced. "Now you try." Taiho tried to copy her. He immediately felt awkward and unbalanced. His legs were too short to match her wide stance. His body proportions were all wrong. No, 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 Rika said, walking around him. You cannot stand like Vextar. You are built different. Stand like human. Low center, quick movement. Like this. She adjusted his position with her hands, surprisingly gentle despite her strength. Better. Now hold this position for 5 minutes. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Tejo's legs shook. Sweat dripped down his face. His muscles burned. But every time he tried to straighten up, Rika pushed him back down into position. Pain means growth. Weakness leaving body. You hold position or we start time over. Tejo held the position. When the 5 minutes finally ended, he collapsed on the floor, breathing hard. Rika looked down at him and nodded once, which felt like high praise coming from her. Training continued every morning. Tejo was terrible at combat. He was slow. His punches had no power. He got tired quickly. But Rika was surprisingly patient as a teacher. She broke everything down into small steps. She never mocked him for being weak, just pushed him to be slightly less weak each day. You will never be strong like Vextar, she told him during one session. Different biology, different evolution, but you can be strong like human. Fast reflexes, good balance, smart thinking. These are your weapons. In return, Tejo taught Rika about human culture. He showed her how to use the station communication systems properly. He explained why humans needed personal space and privacy. He taught her about money and trade, concepts the Vextar barely used since they mostly bartered with combat services. The language barrier improved as Tejo downloaded translation software on his datapad. He started learning basic Vextar words. The language was harsh and difficult, designed for throats built differently than his, but he tried. Rika seemed genuinely pleased when he managed to greet her in her own language one morning, even though his pronunciation was terrible. You sound like a child, she said, but you are trying. That matters. One afternoon they had a small breakthrough. Tejo was showing Rika how to use the station's entertainment system. He pulled up some Earth music, just to have something playing in the background. A traditional Korean drum piece started playing, heavy and rhythmic. Rika's head snapped toward the sound. What is that? Music from my home region on Earth, Tejo said. It's traditional drums. For ceremonies and celebrations. Rika listened intently. Then to Tejo's surprise, she started moving in a pattern that matched the rhythm. It was not dancing exactly, more like a combat form performed in time with the music. Her movements were powerful and precise, perfectly synchronized with the drums. When the song ended, she looked at Tejo with something like respect. Your people make good war drums. That music has strength in it. We also have quiet music, Tejo said, smiling. Not everything is war drums. Then I do not want to hear it, Rika said, but she was smiling too. They started finding other small connections. Rika loved human engineering because she could understand the logic behind it. Every machine had a purpose, every part had a function. It reminded her of how Vextar designed their weapons and armor. Tejo found Vextar hunting stories fascinating once he got past the violent parts. The way they tracked prey, understood animal behavior, worked as teams. It was like solving complex problems just with higher stakes. 3 weeks after they made their deal, something happened that tested how much they had learned. Tejo was in the station marketplace buying supplies when he heard loud voices. A group of 5 aliens stood near a human couple, speaking loudly in the common language. They were Xanthi, a species that looked like tall, thin insects with too many joints. They were known for being merchants and traders, but also for looking down on younger species. The servant race thinks it belongs here, one of the Xanthi was saying, loud enough for everyone to hear. Humans are children playing at being civilized. Give them another 1,000 years and maybe they will be ready to join real societies. The human couple looked humiliated and angry but did not respond. Several other species in the marketplace were watching but not intervening. This was not technically against any rules. It was just cruelty. Tejo felt his face burn with anger. He started walking toward the group, not sure what he planned to do but knowing he had to do something. That was when Rika appeared. She must have been shopping nearby. She moved through the crowd like a force of nature, heading straight for the Xanthi. Tejo's heart sank. She was going to fight them. She was going to cause an incident that would get them both expelled from the program. But Rika stopped in front of the Xanthi without raising her fists. I heard you speaking about humans, she said, her voice dangerously calm. About my bonded mate's Pew life on Unity Station had settled into something almost comfortable. Tejo and Rika still had their disagreements, but they were learning each other's patterns. Rika trained quietly in the early mornings. Tejo kept his tools organized in a way she would not disturb. They ate meals together sometimes, sharing food from their different cultures. It was not perfect, but it was working. Then couples started disappearing from the program. The first incident seemed like bad luck. A human named Jisoo and her Andorian partner got sick from their food. Station Medical said it was just food poisoning, probably from poorly stored ingredients. They recovered but chose to leave the program, too shaken to continue. The second incident was stranger. A couple's quarters lost all life support for 3 hours. They nearly suffocated before maintenance crews found them. The official report called it a mechanical failure. They also left the program. The third incident involved a ship malfunction. A couple was traveling to a nearby moon for a cultural exchange when their shuttle's navigation system failed. They barely made it back alive. The wife was so terrified she demanded immediate separation from the program. Taiho heard about each incident through station gossip and official announcements. By the fourth incident, he started to notice patterns. All the couples were human partnerships. All the incidents were different types of failures: mechanical, medical, technical. All of them were declared accidents. But Tejo had worked with machines and systems his entire life. He knew that well-maintained equipment did not just randomly fail this often. Something was wrong. He mentioned his concerns to Rika one evening while she was sharpening one of her knives. It was one of her meditation activities, the rhythmic scraping of blade against stone helping her think. "You think someone is causing these accidents?" she asked, not looking up from her work. "I think it's too many accidents happening to only human couples," Taiho said. He had his data pad out, reviewing reports. In 3 months, 7 human partnerships have left the program. Only 2 non-human partnerships have left, and those were both because they got pregnant and wanted to go home. "That's not random chance," Rika set down her knife. "If someone is hunting humans in the program, that is a challenge. An attack." Her eyes became more focused, shifting from meditation mode to warrior mode. Who benefits from humans leaving? That was the right question. Tejo had been thinking about it for days. There are several Confederation species that voted against Earth joining. The Hylar were the loudest opponents. They think humans are too primitive and too dangerous. If the bond program fails, it makes Earth look bad. It could even be grounds for reconsidering our membership. "Then we hunt," Rika said simply, standing up. "We find proof of who is doing this. We make them stop." "It's not that simple," Taiho said. "We need evidence. We need to catch them in the act. If we just accuse someone without proof, we look paranoid or stupid." Rika considered this. "Then we become bait. We make ourselves targets. When they come for us, we catch them." It was a terrifying idea. It was also probably the only way to get real proof. Tejo looked at his bonded mate, this fierce warrior who was suggesting they put themselves in danger. A month ago, she could not stand him. Now she was ready to risk her life to help solve a problem that mainly affected humans. "You don't have to do this," Tejo said. "This is a human problem." "You are my bonded mate," Rika said, as if this explained everything. "Your enemies are my enemies. Your battles are my battles. That is how bonds work." She picked up her knife again. "Besides, someone is hunting on this station. That offends me. I am the predator here, not them." They spent the next week investigating quietly. Tejo used his access to station systems to review maintenance logs and security footage. Nothing obvious showed up, but he found small inconsistencies. Maintenance records that did not quite match security timestamps. Supply requests for equipment that should not have been needed. Personnel in areas they should not have been. He brought everything to Rika, who looked at the data with the same intense focus she used when tracking prey. "Someone is covering tracks," she said. "But not perfectly, there." She pointed at a record. "That person appears near 3 different incident locations. Different times, different excuses, but always there." The person was a Hylar technician named Vorin. The Hylar were a crystalline species, almost insect-like in appearance, known for their technical skills and their rigid social hierarchies. Vorin worked in environmental systems, which gave him access to life support, water processing, and air quality controls. "We need to prove he's involved," Taiho said. "One person being near incidents isn't enough evidence. They needed a trap." After discussing options, they came up with a plan. Tejo would send an encrypted message through unofficial channels. designed to look like he was trying to hide it, but actually easy to intercept if someone was looking. The message would say that he had discovered evidence of sabotage and was planning to report it to Confederation authorities in 3 days. If someone was really behind the attacks, they would have to act fast to either steal the evidence or eliminate the threat. Either way, Taiho and Rika would be ready. Rika did not like the plan because it used Taiho as bait, but she agreed it was the best option. They prepared carefully. Taiho set up hidden recording devices in their quarters and the corridors nearby. Rika positioned weapons in places she could reach them quickly. They made sure Administrator Velos knew they were investigating something, just in case everything went wrong. 2 nights after sending the fake message, Taiho was working late in his small workshop area. Rika was in her room, supposedly sleeping but actually watching through a small crack in her door. At 02:37 hours, Taiho heard the main door to their quarters unlock with the soft hiss of an override code being used. Someone with security access was entering without permission. 3 figures in dark clothing entered quietly. They moved like professionals, spreading out to cover the room. 2 were Hyler, their crystalline bodies reflecting the dim light. The third was from a species Taiho did not recognize, bulky and armed. "The human is here," one of the Hyler whispered. "Find the data files. Make it look like a robbery. If he wakes, eliminate him." Taiho's heart pounded. This was real. These people were actually here to hurt him, maybe kill him. He slowly reached for the emergency signal under his desk, the one connected to station security. One of the intruders saw the movement. "He's awake. Take him now." The bulky alien lunged at Taiho with something that looked like a weapon. Taiho rolled away, knocking over tools and equipment. He was not a fighter, but Rika had been training him for weeks. He knew how to move, how to dodge, how to buy time. That was all he needed to do. Buy time. Rika exploded out of her room like a storm. She had been waiting for this, preparing for this. The months of holding back, of learning patience, of controlling her aggression. All of that disappeared in an instant. This was what she was made for. The first Hyler did not even see her coming. She grabbed it and threw it into the wall with enough force to crack both the wall and the intruder's crystalline body. The second Hylar tried to run, but Rika was faster. She caught it by what might have been its neck and slammed it to the ground. The bulky alien fired its weapon at her. The energy blast hit her shoulder, burning through clothes and skin. Rika roared in pain and anger. She charged forward and hit the alien so hard it flew backward through the door into the corridor. Station alarms started blaring. Security would arrive soon. The fight was over in less than 30 seconds. 3 intruders lay on the ground, alive but badly injured. Rika stood over them, breathing hard, blood dripping from her shoulder wound. She looked at Taiho. "You are safe?" "I'm safe," Taiho confirmed, shaking but unhurt. He activated his datapad, checking the recordings. Everything had been captured. Video, audio, all of it. Perfect evidence. Security forces arrived with weapons drawn. Behind them came Administrator Velos, looking shocked and horrified. "What happened here?" "We were attacked," Taiho said. "These 3 broke into our quarters. They admitted they were here to eliminate me and steal evidence. We have it all recorded." The security team carefully restrained the intruders. One of them, the Hylar that Rika had thrown into the wall, was conscious enough to talk. Under questioning, with the recording playing his own words back to him, he started providing information. The conspiracy was bigger than they thought. It was not just 1 or 2 people. The Hylar Collective had organized a secret operation to sabotage the bond program. They believed if enough incidents happened, especially to human couples, Earth would be pressured to leave the Confederation. Vorin the technician was part of it, but so were others. Station personnel, ship mechanics, even some medical staff. Administrator Velos looked sick as the confessions came out. "This is a major diplomatic incident. The Hylar leadership will have to answer for this." He looked at Taiho and Rika. "You could have been killed. Why didn't you come to us when you first suspected something?" "We needed proof," Taiho said. "Suspicions are not enough. We needed to catch them in the act." "You used yourselves as bait," Velos said, understanding. "That was incredibly dangerous and incredibly brave." Rika, sitting while a medical technician treated her shoulder burn, made a dismissive sound. "It was necessary. And the station was quieter after the arrests. Security had increased everywhere. The Confederation Council had sent investigators to interview everyone involved in the bond program. For 2 weeks, Taiho and Rika gave statements, answered questions, and tried to return to some kind of normal life. But things were not completely resolved. The Hyler conspirators who had been caught were only lower-level operatives. They admitted to following orders but claimed they did not know who gave those orders. The trail went cold at mid-level bureaucrats who suddenly could not remember anything useful. Taiho knew this meant the real leaders were still out there, protected by layers of distance and denial. Rika knew it too. She became more alert, more protective. She insisted on accompanying Taiho everywhere, even to boring maintenance calls. "The hunters who sent those three are still free," she said, when Taiho tried to tell her he would be fine alone. "Until we find them, you are in danger. I do not leave my partner in danger." 3 weeks after the attack, they received a message from Administrator Velos. He wanted to meet with them privately in his office. When they arrived, he looked tired and frustrated. "The investigation has stalled," he admitted. "The Hyler government is cooperating officially but blocking us unofficially. Every lead ends at a closed door. Every witness suddenly has memory problems. The Confederation Council is losing interest. They want to call the case closed and move on. But the real organizers are still out there," Taiho said. "I know, but without proof, without witnesses, we cannot proceed." Velos looked at them carefully. "There is one option, but it is dangerous. The Hylar have a tradition called a truth trial. If someone is accused of serious crimes and there is doubt, the accused can demand a trial where evidence is presented publicly, and a champion fights to defend the honor of the accused. It is very old, very formal, and completely legal under Confederation law." "You want me to challenge the Hylar leadership to this trial?" Rika asked, leaning forward with interest. "Not you," Velos said. "They would expect that. A warrior challenging them to combat would be easy to dismiss as aggression. But if Taiho challenged them, a human, a mechanic, someone who should be afraid to fight, that would be different. That would be bold. They would have trouble refusing without looking cowardly." Taiho felt his stomach drop. "You want me to challenge them?" "The challenge itself does not matter," Velos explained. "What matters is that a truth trial forces them to present their defense publicly. All evidence becomes part of the public record. All witnesses must testify. Even if you lose the combat part, we win the information war. We get everything out in the open where they cannot hide it." "And if Taiho loses the combat part?" Rika asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "The combat is symbolic," Velos said quickly.
"It is not a death match."
"First blood or submission. The Hylar will appoint a champion. Taiho would appoint one too. You could fight for him, Rika. You are his bonded mate. That is allowed." Rika looked at Taiho. "What do you think?" Taiho was thinking many things, mostly about how he had never wanted to be the center of a political incident. But he was also thinking about the other human couples who had been hurt or frightened, about how Earth was still new to the Confederation and needed to show strength, about how sometimes the right thing to do was also the scary thing to do. "I think we do not let them hide," Taiho said. "I think we force them into the light." Rika's fierce smile appeared. "Good, then we plan. We prepare. We hunt them in a different way." The next days were intense with planning. Velos helped them file the formal challenge through proper channels. The target was Ambassador Kelness, the highest-ranking Hylar official who had any connection to the conspiracy. Kelness had not been arrested because there was no direct proof, but everyone suspected his involvement. The challenge could not be refused without admitting cowardice or guilt. Kelness accepted, as they knew he would. The truth trial was scheduled for 2 weeks later. It would be public, broadcast across the Confederation. Everyone would be watching. "This is a lot of pressure," Taiho said one night while reviewing documents. His quarters had become a war room with charts and evidence spread everywhere. Rika was doing her evening training, moving through combat forms. "Pressure makes diamonds from coal," she said, using a human expression she had learned. "You will be strong enough. I'm not fighting, you are. I'm just the one making speeches. Speeches are also fighting. You will stand in front of thousands of people and accuse powerful enemies of crimes. That takes courage. Different courage than combat, but still real." She finished her form and sat down next to him. "Tell me your plan for the trial. I need to know what you are thinking." Taiho explained his approach. The trial had 3 parts. First, the formal accusation where he would present evidence. Second, the testimony phase where witnesses would speak. Third, the combat to defend honor. His strategy was to focus on the first 2 parts, to bury the Hylar in facts and witnesses before the combat even started. "I have been working with other humans who were affected by the sabotage," Taiho said. They all agreed to testify. We also have station personnel who saw suspicious activities, the medical records, the maintenance logs, everything documented and verified. And the Hylar will try to discredit all of it, Rika said. Yes, but I have been learning about their culture. They value order and hierarchy. They believe in following procedures. I'm going to use their own rules against them. Show how the conspiracy violated their own laws and traditions. Make it not just a crime against humans, but a betrayal of Hylar principles. Rika looked impressed. You are thinking like a hunter, finding the weakness in the prey and striking there. You are a good teacher, Taiho said. They sat together preparing for what was coming. During these planning sessions, Taiho noticed how much Rika had changed since they first met. She was still fierce, still powerful, but she had learned patience. She listened more. She thought before acting. And she had stopped looking at him like he was a disappointment. One evening, while they were taking a break from preparation, Rika said something unexpected. I am afraid. Taiho looked at her in surprise. He had never heard her admit fear before. Of what? Of losing you, she said quietly. In the attack on our quarters, when that weapon fired at you and I was too far away to stop it, I felt terror. Real terror. Not fear of being hurt myself. Fear of you being hurt. She looked at her hands, these powerful hands that could break stone. I do not understand this feeling. Vexstar do not fear losing their mates. We honor them if they die in battle. But I do not want to honor you. I want you alive. Taiho reached out and took one of her large hands in both of his smaller ones. I'm afraid too, he admitted. Afraid that I'm asking too much of you. That this trial will put you in danger. That I'm being selfish. We are partners, Rika said firmly. Partners share danger. Partners protect each other. You would do the same for me. I would, Taiho agreed. I really would. She squeezed his hand gently, careful not to hurt him. Then we face this together. No fear, no doubt. We show them what a true bond looks like. The night before the trial, neither of them could sleep. They sat in the common area, Rika sharpening her weapons, Taiho reviewing his notes for the 100th time. Do you regret it? Rika asked suddenly. Being matched with me? If you could go back and choose someone else, someone easier, would you? Taiho thought about it honestly. Thought about all the fights and frustrations. Thought about learning to live with someone so different from himself. Thought about the danger and the fear and the uncertainty. No, he said. I would not choose different. You drive me crazy sometimes. You're too loud and too violent and you break my things. But you're also brave and honest and loyal. You make me stronger. You make me better. I would not trade that for anything. Rika looked at him with those golden eyes that had seemed so alien and frightening when they first met. Now they just looked like Rika. You make me better too, she said. You teach me patience. You show me different ways to solve problems. You remind me that strength is not just physical power. She paused. My bond sister was right. This is not punishment. This is gift. I was too stupid to see it at first. We were both stupid at first, Taiho said with a small smile. But we learned. Yes, we learned. Rika stood up and offered him her hand. Come sleep. Tomorrow we hunt together. We show them that they chose wrong enemies. They thought humans were weak. They thought bonds between different species were fake. We proved them wrong on both counts. Taiho took her hand and let her pull him to his feet. They went to their separate rooms, but before closing the doors, Rika called out, Taiho, thank you for being my partner. Thank you for being mine, he replied. The next morning came too fast. They dressed carefully. Taiho wore formal earth clothing, simple but dignified. Rika wore her full ceremonial armor, polished until it gleamed, every bone and metal piece representing a battle won or an honor earned. Together they looked like an impossible pair, the small human and the giant warrior, but they felt matched. They felt ready. The trial was held in the station's main assembly hall. Thousands attended in person. Millions watched on broadcasts. Taiho walked to the center platform with Rika beside him. Across from them stood Ambassador Kelnus with his chosen champion, a Hylar warrior in crystalline armor. The combat arena in the center of the assembly hall was circular, 20 meters across, surrounded by energy barriers to protect the audience. The floor was marked with traditional symbols from various Confederation species. This was neutral ground where honor would be tested through strength. Rika stood at one edge, her armor gleaming under the bright lights. Across from her stood the Hylar champion, a warrior named Kreth. He was massive for his species, his crystalline body reflecting light in sharp angles. His armor was made from reinforced metals designed to protect his naturally brittle form. He carried a long spear with a blade at each end. Tejo watched from the preparation area, his heart pounding. He trusted Rika's skills, but he also knew that Kreth had been chosen specifically to counter her strengths. The Hylar had done their research. They knew what they were facing. The Arbiter stepped forward and spoke the ritual words. This combat is to first blood or submission. Lethal force is forbidden. The honor of the accused and accuser will be tested through the skill of their champions. Begin when ready. Rika and Kreth moved to the center. They did not speak. Words were not necessary. Both were warriors who understood this language of combat. The fight began suddenly. Kreth struck first, his spear moving faster than something that size should move. Rika dodged to the side, feeling the blade cut through the air where her head had been. She countered with a low sweep, trying to take his legs. But he jumped backward with surprising speed. They circled each other, both looking for weakness. The audience was silent. Thousands of beings watching two warriors test each other. Tejo barely breathed. Kreth attacked again, a series of quick strikes with both ends of his spear. Rika blocked and dodged, her movements fluid despite her heavy armor. She had trained in the Vextar way since childhood. Combat was as natural to her as breathing, but Kreth was skilled too. He kept distance between them, using his weapon's reach advantage. Every time Rika tried to close in where her superior strength would matter, he moved away, forcing her to chase him. It was a smart strategy. Tire the stronger opponent, wait for mistakes. Minutes passed. Both warriors were sweating now. Rika's armor had several scratches where the spear had come close. Kreth had a dent in his chest piece where Rika's fist had connected during one brief exchange. Then Kreth changed tactics. He began targeting Rika's old shoulder wound, the burn she had received during the attack on their quarters. It had healed but was still weak. Each strike forced her to block with that side, aggravating the injury. Tejo saw Rika wince and wanted to call out to stop this, but he could not interfere. This was her fight. He had to trust her. Rika seemed to be struggling now. Her movements were slower. She favored her good side. Kreth pressed the advantage, striking harder, faster, driving her backward toward the arena edge. Some in the audience began to murmur. The Hylar supporters looked pleased. The humans looked worried. Kreth raised his spear for a powerful overhead strike. Rika brought both arms up to block, protecting her head. The spear came down hard and Rika caught it. Her injured arm had been a trick. The weakness had been an act. She grabbed the spear shaft with both hands and yanked hard, pulling Kreth off balance. Before he could react, she twisted and threw him over her hip. The Hylar warrior hit the ground hard. Rika kept the spear, broke it over her knee like a piece of wood, and tossed the pieces aside. Kreth rolled away and came up with a knife, but his confidence was shaken. He had fallen for a simple trap, the kind of thing a novice might do. "You fought smart," Rika said, speaking for the first time since the combat started, "using my injury against me. Good tactic, but I have been fighting since before you were formed. I know every trick." She did not give him time to recover. She charged forward, closing the distance he had worked so hard to maintain. Kreth slashed with his knife, but Rika was inside his guard now. She grabbed his weapon arm, twisted it, and the knife fell to the ground. They grappled, strength against strength. Kreth was strong for his species, but Rika was Vextar. She was built for this. She lifted him off the ground and slammed him down. His crystalline armor cracked. "Not badly, but enough." "Submit," Rika said, her hand on his throat. "You fought well. No shame in submission." Kreth struggled for a moment, then went still. "I submit," he said quietly. The Arbiter called the match. The champion of the accuser is victorious. The combat trial concludes in favor of Tejo of Earth. The assembly hall erupted in noise. Some cheered, some protested, everyone had an opinion. But the law was clear. Tejo's accusations had been proven through evidence and through combat. Ambassador Kelnis stood with his supporters looking shocked and angry. Rika walked back to where Tejo waited. She had some cuts and bruises, but nothing serious. She looked tired but satisfied. "I told you I would win," she said. "You scared me with that fake injury trick," Tejo replied. "Good tricks are scary. That is what makes them work." She accepted water from a medical attendant. "What happens now?" What happened now was chaos. The verdict should have been the end. The Hylar should have accepted the ruling, faced the consequences, and moved on. But Ambassador Calnus was not ready to lose everything. While the Arbiter was preparing the formal judgment, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Security alert. Multiple breaches in the station's outer sectors. Armed individuals were forcing their way through checkpoints. The public address system announced an evacuation of the assembly hall. Taiho and Rika looked at each other with the same thought. This was Calnus's backup plan. If he could not win legally, he would win through violence. Create chaos, destroy evidence, eliminate threats. Station security forces rushed to respond, but they were trained for minor incidents and disputes, not for a coordinated attack. Through the windows, Taiho could see explosions in distant sections of the station. Whoever these attackers were, they had come prepared. They are going for the evidence, Taiho said, thinking fast. All the physical records we gathered are in the security archives. If they destroy that, the trial verdict means nothing. Then we stop them, Rika said simply. She picked up Kreth's discarded knife from the arena floor. It was a weapon, and she did not plan to face attackers unarmed. They ran through the evacuating crowds, going against the flow of people fleeing to safety. Other humans from the Bond program saw them and called out, asking what was happening. Minho appeared with his Andorian partner. The security archives are under attack, Taiho shouted over the noise. We need help protecting the evidence. To his surprise, more humans came forward. Some were from the Bond program. Others were just residents of the station. Jisoo, who had been one of the first victims of the sabotage, stepped forward with determination. We're not running anymore. Tell us what to do. Taiho felt something surge in his chest. Pride, hope. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest or the most advanced. But they were brave and they were adaptable. Rika and I will secure the archives. We need people to help station security with crowd control and damage assessment. If anyone has technical skills, we need the station's defensive systems online. If anyone has medical training, we need triage stations set up. We work together. The humans scattered to their tasks. Some alien residents joined them, inspired by their courage. The Bond program partners coordinated with each other using the cultural understanding they had built. It was exactly what the program was meant to create. Cooperation between species. Taiho and Rika reached the security archives to find the doors already breached. Inside, they heard the sounds of destruction. They entered carefully, staying low, using cover. 4 attackers were inside, all Hyler, all armed with energy weapons. They were methodically destroying data storage units and burning physical documents. When they saw Taiho and Rika, they opened fire without hesitation. Rika moved like water around stone, finding cover and advancing. She threw the knife with deadly accuracy, disarming one attacker. Another she charged directly, taking an energy blast to her armor before she reached him and knocked him unconscious with one punch. Taiho was not idle. He knew this room, knew these systems. He ran to the main control terminal and began typing fast. If he could seal the emergency doors, trap the attackers inside, prevent them from escaping with or destroying more evidence. 2 attackers turned their weapons on him. Energy blast hit near his position, destroying consoles and setting off small fires. Taiho kept working, his fingers flying over the controls. Just a few more seconds. Rika threw herself between Taiho and the attackers, taking hits meant for him. Her armor held but barely. She roared in pain and anger, a sound that echoed through the room. She grabbed a piece of broken furniture and threw it at the attackers, buying precious seconds. Taiho hit the final command. Emergency doors slammed shut, sealing the room. The attackers were trapped. So were Taiho and Rika, but that was fine. They had backup coming. The attackers had nowhere to run. The remaining 2 Hyler realized they had lost. They dropped their weapons and put their hands up in surrender. Rika stood over them, breathing hard, her armor smoking from energy burns. She looked at Taiho. You are hurt? No. You took the hits for me, again. Taiho came out from behind cover. Thank you. That is what partners do, Rika said, wincing as she moved. But next time, work faster. My armor cannot take many. Taiho woke up 3 days later in the station medical center. His last clear memory was sitting in their quarters with Rika after the attack. After that, everything was blurry. The medical staff told him he had collapsed from exhaustion, dehydration, and exposure to toxic smoke from the fires. They had kept him sedated to let his body recover. The first thing he saw when his eyes fully opened was Rika. She was sitting in a chair beside his bed, still wearing parts of her damaged armor. Her head was tilted back against the wall and she was asleep, but not peacefully. Even unconscious, she looked ready to wake and fight at any moment. A nurse, a small blue alien with tentacles instead of arms, noticed Taiho was awake. "Your mate has not left this room since you arrived," she whispered. "We tried to make her go rest, but she refused. She said someone tried to kill you and she would not fail to protect you again." Taiho felt warmth spread through his chest. 3 months ago, Rika had looked at him like he was a burden. Now she was losing sleep to guard him while he healed. "Rika," he said softly. Her golden eyes snapped open instantly, going from sleep to full alertness in a heartbeat. She leaned forward, studying his face. "You are awake. Finally. The medical staff said you would wake soon, but you took too long." I was starting to worry. How long was I out? 3 days. Your weak human body could not handle the stress. She said it without judgment, just stating a fact. "But you are recovering well now. The medical staff says you will be fine. You should rest too," Taiho said, noticing the dark circles under her eyes and the exhaustion in her posture. "I am resting. Sitting is resting." Rika stood and stretched, her joints popping loudly. "Besides, there has been much happening. I needed to stay awake to know what is occurring." Over the next hour, while Taiho ate and drank what the medical staff brought him, Rika filled him in on everything he had missed. The Hyler Collective was in disgrace. Ambassador Kelness and 17 other high-ranking officials had been arrested. The Confederation Council had imposed severe sanctions. Several Hyler colonies were being investigated for their role in the conspiracy. It was the biggest political scandal in recent Confederation history. The Bond program had been declared a success despite the attacks, or perhaps because of how people responded to the attacks. Humans and their alien partners had proven that the bonds were real and valuable. Earth's status in the Confederation was now secure. More than secure, actually. Several council members were talking about giving Earth greater responsibilities and authority. And Taiho and Rika had become famous. News broadcasts across the Confederation showed footage of the truth trial, of Rika's combat victory, of humans working together during the attack. Some were calling them heroes. Others were calling them symbols of what the Confederation could be. "I do not like being famous," Rika said, wrinkling her nose. "Too many people want to talk to me. Ask questions. Take images. It is annoying. We can probably go back to being normal soon," Taiho said. "People will forget and move on to the next story. Maybe." Rika sat back down in her chair. Administrator Velos came to visit. He said the bond program year requirement is complete for us. We can choose to separate if we wish. He will make it official and simple. Taiho felt his stomach drop. Of course, the year was over. They had fulfilled their obligation. They could go their separate ways now, return to their own lives. Rika could go back to her clan on the Vextar homeworld. Taiho could return to Earth or stay on the station. There was no requirement to stay together anymore. "What do you want to do?" he asked carefully. Rika was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than usual. "When you were unconscious, when the medical staff was working to stabilize you, I felt something I have never felt before. Terror. Real, complete terror. Not of death or pain or failure. Terror that you would not wake up. That I would lose you." She looked at her hands. "I realized that you are not just my assigned mate or my partner in fighting criminals. You are important to me, more important than I knew." She looked up at him with those golden eyes that had once seemed so alien and now just seemed like home. "I do not want to separate. I want to stay bonded to you, but only if that is what you want too. I will not force you to stay with me." Taiho felt emotions rise in his throat. Relief, joy, fear, hope, all mixed together. "I don't want to separate either," he said. "You're impossible and loud and you break things. But you're also brave and honest and loyal. You make me stronger. You make me want to be better." He reached out and took her large hand in his smaller one. "I want to stay with you. Not because a program says we have to. Because I choose to." Rika squeezed his hand gently. "Then we stay together. We remain bonded." She paused, then added, "You are not so bad yourself for a small, soft human who cannot fight properly. I learned from the best," Taiho said with a smile. They sat together in comfortable silence until the medical staff came to check on Taiho again. The doctor, a floating creature that looked like it was made of light, examined him thoroughly. "You are healing well. I think we can discharge you tomorrow if you promise to rest and not immediately get into another fight with conspirators." "I promise," Taiho said. "We're going to have very boring lives from now on." The doctor made a sound like wind chimes, laughing. "Somehow I doubt that." The next day, Taiho was released from medical care. He and Rika returned to their quarters to find that they had been completely repaired and renovated. Someone, probably Administrator Velos, had arranged for all the damage to be fixed. The walls were whole, the furniture replaced, everything clean and new. There was also a pile of messages waiting for them. Congratulations from other bond program couples. Thanks from humans across the station. Job offers from various Confederation organizations. Interview requests from news services. Invitations to speak at events. Too many words, Rika said, looking at the list. We ignore most of these. Agreed, Taiho said. But there are some we should answer. He found messages from his family on Earth and from Rika's bond sister, Kira. Those were important. Over the next weeks, life slowly returned to something like normal. Taiho went back to work as a mechanic. Rika took a position with station security, teaching combat techniques to security forces. They settled into routines that actually worked for both of them, but they also received an interesting opportunity. The Vextar Clan Council invited both of them to visit the Vextar homeworld for a formal ceremony. Rika's clan wanted to honor her accomplishments and meet the human who had bonded with her. My clan is difficult, Rika warned as they prepared for the trip. They will test you, challenge you, try to see if you are worthy of me. I survived living with you for a year, Taiho said. I think I can handle meeting your family. The Vextar homeworld was harsh and beautiful. High gravity made everything feel heavy. The landscape was red rocks and purple vegetation. Cities were built like fortresses, strong and practical. The people moved with confident power, all warriors in their own way. Rika's clan compound was in a mountainous region. When they arrived, dozens of Vextar came out to greet them. All of them were large, muscular, covered in scars and battle trophies. They looked at Taiho with expressions ranging from curiosity to disappointment. Kira, Rika's bond sister, was there. She embraced Rika in a way that probably would have broken Taiho's ribs, then turned to study him. So this is the soft human everyone is talking about. The one who fought with words and won battles with thinking. I am Taiho, he said, trying to stand straight despite the heavy gravity pressing down on him. Can you survive here? Kira asked bluntly. The gravity alone kills most species after a few days. I can adapt, Taiho said. Humans are good at adapting. The clan matriarch appeared, an elderly Vextar female with more scars than anyone Taiho had ever seen. She moved slowly but with absolute authority. Everyone stepped aside for her. She walked up to Taiho and looked down at him from her impressive height. You are very small, she observed. Yes, Elder, Taiho said. I am. My daughter chose you. My clan sent her to the bond program hoping she would learn control. Instead, she found a mate and became a hero. The matriarch tilted her head. Show me why she chose you. Show me what a human can do. This was the test Rika had warned him about. The clan needed to see that he was worthy, that he was not just a weak alien who had gotten lucky. Taiho looked around at the compound. He saw water systems, power generators, communication arrays, all functional but all old, built decades ago with outdated technology. May I examine your equipment? He asked. The matriarch looked surprised but gestured permission. Taiho spent the next several hours studying the clan's infrastructure. He took notes, asked questions, and slowly began to understand the systems. Then he started making adjustments. He rerouted power flows to be more efficient. He updated communication systems to work better. He fixed water purification units that had been running at reduced capacity for years. He did not ask for permission for each change, just worked steadily, doing what he was good at. The Vextar watched him work. They saw him struggle with the heavy gravity but refused to quit. They saw him solve problems they had simply accepted as unfixable. They saw him work with focus and determination that matched their own warrior discipline. Taiho stood in the massive hall with 300 other humans, all wearing the same nervous expression. The year was 2247. And Earth had finally joined the Galactic Confederation after decades of being alone in space. This should have been a moment of celebration, but Taiho felt only worry in his stomach. The cross-species bond program was not optional for those who were selected. It was part of the treaty Earth signed to join the Confederation. Every participating species had to send citizens to marry people from other worlds. The Confederation leaders said it would create peace and understanding between different races. Taiho thought it sounded like a complicated way to force friendships. He watched the giant screens above the stage. One by one, names appeared. Human names on the left, alien names on the right. Most of the aliens looked almost human, just with different colored skin or slightly different features. He saw his friend Minho get paired with a tall, elegant female from the Andorian people. She looked calm and sophisticated. Minho looked relieved. Participant 2274 Taiho of Earth, the automated voice announced. Taiho's heart jumped. His name glowed on the screen in bright letters. He waited to see who would appear on the right side. The name that appeared made several people in the crowd gasp. Even the Confederation officials at their tables looked surprised. Rika of the Vextar clans. Taiho knew that name. Everyone knew about the Vextar. They were one of the most feared warrior races in the entire Confederation. They came from a high-gravity world where everything was about strength and combat. They settled disputes with fighting. They decorated their bodies with scars from their battles. Most species tried to avoid making the Vextar angry, and now one of them was supposed to be his wife. The other humans near him took small steps away, as if his bad luck might spread to them. Taiho just sighed and walked toward the meeting area where he was supposed to wait for his assigned partner. A Confederation official, a small blue creature with too many eyes, gave him a sympathetic look. "She will arrive shortly," the official said in a high voice. "Please, try to make a good impression." "The Vextar value strength and directness," Taiho almost laughed. He was a mechanic who spent his days fixing broken equipment on the Sol space station. He was not strong by human standards and definitely not by alien warrior standards. He was average height, thin from living in low-gravity environments with hands scarred from tools and hot metal, not from glorious combat. He sat in the waiting area and watched other couples meet. Most meetings looked awkward but friendly. Handshakes, nervous smiles, attempts at conversation. Some aliens brought gifts. Some humans brought flowers from Earth. It all looked very civilized and polite. Then the door at the far end of the hall opened with a loud bang. Rika did not walk into the room. She strode in like she owned it, and everyone should know it. She was massive, at least 7 feet tall, with muscles that looked like they could bend steel. Her skin was deep crimson, darker than human red, with black markings that might have been tattoos or natural patterns. She wore armor that looked like it was made from the bones of large creatures, with metal pieces attached at the joints. Her face was beautiful in a terrifying way. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes that were completely golden with black slits for pupils like a predator. Her hair was long and black, tied back in a complex braid that had small bones and metal rings woven into it. Scars crossed her arms and one ran across her collarbone, disappearing under her armor. She looked around the room with an expression of obvious disappointment. Her golden eyes swept past the other couples, past the officials, and finally landed on Taiho. She walked toward him with heavy steps. Her boots made the floor shake slightly. Taiho stood up because it seemed like the right thing to do. She stopped in front of him and looked down, way down. She was almost 2 feet taller than him. "You are Taiho?" Her voice was deep and rough, speaking the common language with a thick accent that made every word sound like a challenge. "Yes," Taiho said. "And you're Rika." She leaned down slightly, studying him like he was a piece of equipment that might be broken. She walked around him in a slow circle. Taiho felt like prey being examined by a hunter. Other couples in the room had stopped their conversations to watch. "Small," she said finally. "Very small. Weak muscles, soft skin. No scars." She said each observation like she was listing defects in a product. "What are you?" "I'm a mechanic," Taiho said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I fix things. Ships, stations, equipment. A builder." She seemed confused by this concept. "You do not fight?" "Not usually, no." Rika made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. It was hard to tell. She straightened up to her full height and crossed her arms. "They give me a soft skin builder. A small, weak human who fixes broken things." She looked up at the ceiling and said something in her own language that sounded very much like cursing. An official hurried over. A tall, thin alien with too many fingers. "Is there a problem?" "The matching algorithm is very sophisticated. It considers personality, compatibility, psychological profiles. Your algorithm is broken," Rika interrupted. "I am a third-rank warrior of the Storm Clan. I have fought in 12 campaigns. I have killed 3 challengers in ritual combat. And you match me with—" She gestured at Taiho. "This." Taiho felt his face getting hot. He was embarrassed but also getting angry. Yes, he was not a warrior. Yes, he was not impressive by Vextar standards. But he was good at what he did. He kept entire stations running. He had worked 40-hour shifts when critical systems failed. He had saved lives with his skills, just not in the way she would understand. The matching is final, the official said nervously. You both agreed to participate in the program. The Confederation expects you to honor the commitment for at least 1 Earth year. After that, you may petition for separation if the bond has not formed. 1 year? Rika looked like someone had just told her she was sentenced to prison. She looked at Taiho again with those predator eyes. 1 year with a soft, weak human who cannot even fight. I can fight, Taiho said quietly. The words came out before he could stop them. Just not with my fists. And I'm not weak. I'm just not strong in the way you measure it. Rika's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Taiho thought she might hit him. Instead, she made that growling laugh sound again. You have courage to speak back to me. That is something, at least. She picked up a data tablet from the official's table, glanced at it, and handed it to Taiho. These are our quarters, Deck 7, Section 12. I will meet you there. She said it like an order. Then she turned and walked away without another word, her armor clanking with each step. Other humans and aliens moved quickly out of her path. Taiho stood there holding the tablet, watching her disappear through the door. Around him, other couples were exchanging contact information, making plans for dinner, talking about their homeworlds. Minho walked over with his new Andorian partner, who smiled politely. Are you okay? Minho asked, concern in his voice. Taiho looked at the tablet, then at the door where Rika had exited. Ask me again in a year, he said. If I survive that long? The Andorian female made a sympathetic sound. The Vextar are not so bad once you understand them. They value honesty and strength. Perhaps you have strength she has not yet seen. Taiho hoped she was right, but as he walked toward Deck 7 with his small bag of belongings, he could not shake the feeling that he had just been matched with the one creature in the entire Confederation who would least understand what it meant to be human. His new wife thought he was weak and useless, and they had a full year to spend together whether they liked it or not. Taiho had fixed many broken things in his life, but he had never tried to fix a relationship that was broken before it even started. This was going to be interesting.